Good evening. I am NAP President Wanda Sims. On behalf of the NAP Board of Directors, welcome to tonight's meeting. As I indicated in our last town hall meeting, we are committed to providing you with regular updates from our committees and the Commission on Credentialing as they work together to elevate our credentialing program. The purpose of tonight's town hall meeting is to share with you what has been accomplished in the last 30 days since our last town hall meeting regarding our credentialing program. The NAP Board of, next slide. The NAP Board of Directors at its November, for tonight's meeting, the overview is we will talk about the recent board actions. We will talk about a change in philosophies regarding the credentialing program. We will talk about the new format for the Registered Parliamentarian credentialing examination, talk about the differences between the new program and the Schoology program, and we will answer questions at the end. Next slide. Recent board actions. The purpose of tonight's town hall meeting, again, is to share with you the accomplishments that have occurred since the last meeting, which was 30 days ago. The Board of Directors at its November meeting allocated over $50,000 to the credentialing program and an additional $60,000 to the Education Fund for course development in NAP University. The board also approved a recommendation that was based, from the Commission on Credentialing, a recommendation that the Membership Registration and Examiners Committee adopted and made the recommendation to the board, and we awarded RP credentials to over 80 candidates. We also approved and signed a contract with ExamSoft for the monitoring of the membership and credentialing exams. We approved a new format for the RP exam that you will hear more about later this evening. And lastly, we signed a new 5-year partnership agreement with the NAP Education Foundation. The foundation has agreed to give NAP $15,000 annually to support our education initiatives, plus an additional $5,000 annually to support our education events. On behalf of the NAP Board of Directors and the Foundation Board, thank you to our members that have contributed to the foundation thus far, including those members that gave on Giving Tuesday this week. Thank you very much. Now, although today is not Tuesday, it's not too late for you to give. So for those of you that have not renewed your dues, I would encourage you to include a donation to the foundation if you can. This partnership also includes grants for the units and associations. If you are a unit or association leader, I encourage you to apply for a foundation grant to help support your education program. Now for tonight's presentation from the Commission on Credentialing. First, to ensure that we get through the presentation, if you have any questions regarding the information provided, we ask that you use the Q&A feature to submit your questions. At the end of the presentation, we will attempt to answer as many questions as possible. After the town hall is over, if you still have questions, I encourage you to contact any member of the commission, any of our committees, or the board of directors, including myself. And also you can contact our headquarters team. At this time, I will now turn it over to CJ Caven, Chairman of the Commission on Credentialing. CJ?
Thank you, Madam President, and welcome to tonight's town hall for all of our members. We're at over 210. And one of the things that I'm really excited about as we move forward with the commission is this level of participation, is this open, transparent communication that we get to have. And it makes me so happy that so many of you are participating. We will also have a recording of this town hall tonight available shortly. So if you'd like to go back and review or share this with people who were unable to be here tonight. So one of the things that the commission believes is important is to provide an update on, one, the things that we're currently working on, but also the things that have happened in the past, things that we're currently trying to assess and make decisions on. One of those things is the Schoology program. As you know, as we're going to talk about tonight, the Schoology RP program is going away and it's being replaced. But before it is replaced, it's important to talk about the impact of that program. And both in terms of numbers of people who have taken it, who have been a part of it, but also in terms of numbers of people who have completed it or lapsed out. So I think it's important to share this number. Uh, in the history of the Schoology RP program, there have been 255 unique candidates, 255 individual NAP members that have been a part of this. Out of that 255, as the president mentioned, 81 have received their RP in the last 30 days. And that's the only those 81 have received an RP from this process. There are 49 candidates still in the program. 8 of the 255 dropped out of the Schoology program and got their RP credential from the legacy program, from the 1,200 questions. And then 117 of that 255 of those 255 candidates either dropped out, lapsed, didn't continue for whatever reason. So it's important to share these numbers. One, it took some of us new commissioners a while to get a handle on just how many people are we talking about. And once we did that, we felt it was really, really important to share those numbers with you tonight. This is that same information, just in a different format. Again, 255 candidates, 81 have received that RP through the Schoology program, 49 are still in the program, 8 dropped out to take the legacy exam, and 117 lapsed or dropped for some other reason. One of the things that's important as we talk about what is replacing the Schoology program is talk a little bit about the philosophies, a little bit about why this change in direction. And if you joined us for the last town hall or you watched that afterwards, you'll know we talked a little bit about this already. But I think it's important to revisit these again, and also to share some of the additional changes to the philosophies. Now, it's important to note that all the content in this part of the presentation, it can still change. It is still subject to review and revision as the commission updates the criteria for credentialing. Once that criteria for credentialing is fully updated, you might see some slight wording changes, but I believe that the principles will remain the same no matter what the final wording is. So these, the way that I'm going to present these is I'm going to show you the original philosophies, and if there is a change to those, I'm going to show you the marked up version, and then I'm going to show you the cleaned version, where what will likely remain in principle. So there's a couple of slides, and some of them repeat themselves, but that's why I want to be clear on what the changes are. So originally, in the 2019 criteria, some of the principles were assessment should be focused on what parliamentarians in fact need to be able to do in practice to serve clients competently, rather than on some theoretical idea of comprehensive knowledge and ability. This isn't changing. The commission still believes this. Candidates should be informed in advance with as much detail as possible, precisely what they will be expected to know and be able to do, and how it will be assessed. This is also unchanged. This one does change. The assessment process should be broken up into units of knowledge and application so that candidates may seek to learn and master, and then be assessed on manageable chunks of material at a time. Although many of those elements will ultimately be brought together in a final assessment process designed to simulate as nearly as possible what parliamentarians are actually expected to do. So this does change, and here's the change. We're striking out nearly all of that. So this is, you can see the strikeout and insert, but I'm just going to show you what it's likely going to say, what the actual change is. The assessment process should be summative, so that candidates learn and master all the required knowledge and apply that knowledge in a final assessment. I want to pause here and define the word summative. I am not a professional educator. Many of us are not, but all of these principles are built on professional educational terms. So the word summative, I think, is important to have a definition. So a summative or end of program assessment is used to evaluate participants' accomplishment of the intended learning outcomes, and generally takes place at the completion of an educational or training component of the program. So a summative, when we say summative, we mean a single final assessment, not something broken up over multiple quizzes or multiple parts or steps. So here's another original principle that has also changed. To the extent administratively feasible, candidates should be given multiple opportunities to reattempt units they may not initially successfully complete. The emphasis ought not to be on, quote, passing or failing, but instead on maximizing the ability of candidates to develop the required competencies. There will be a change here as well. So you'll see we're striking out all of it and we're replacing it with just this. Candidates will be examined on an objective basis and must complete a two-part assessment that should demonstrate overall knowledge of the performance expectations. Candidates must successfully complete both parts to achieve the registered parliamentarian credential. So those are the philosophies. So it's important to talk about what does that two-part assessment look like? And this is the bulk of the material for tonight's town hall. What does the new RP exam look like? The commission developed and designed and wrote the initial proposal. We worked with the Membership Registration and Examiners Committee over the details. We're so grateful for their support. We're so grateful for their cooperation and partnership as we all move through this process. And the next time you see an MREC member, and if you'll email me, I'll give you their names. Thank them for what they have done for our organization as well, because their work should not go unnoticed or unthanked. So please thank them, particularly their chair, Patricia Colley. They've done an extraordinary work. They worked with us on this. They adopted this and recommended to the NAP Board of Directors that this replace the RP exam. It's also important to note that the bylaws for NAP have remained unchanged. So the reason why it's so important that the commission works with the MREC committee and the professional development committee is because they're the two committees still officially, technically, procedurally, all the ways responsible for these examinations. We're phasing these in so that the commission can ultimately take control of the credentialing programs as intended in the bylaws. But we're not going to do it all at one time. We're going to do it in pieces so that members understand and can adapt to what's expected for our credentialing programs. So again, I just want to thank the members of MREC and the PDC for their cooperation. So this is the proposal that's been adopted. This is the basis for the new RP exam. The Registered Parliamentarian Credentialing Exam, the RPCE, you'll see that several times throughout this presentation. The RPCE is administered by the Commission on Credentialing in conjunction with the Membership and Registration Examiners Committee, and is composed of the multiple choice exam and the performance exam. It's uniformly administered, scored, and evaluated. And to be clear, uniformly, when we say that, so that there's no confusion, it means every exam in an exam window is the same. Everyone that takes an exam in a specific time frame is getting the same content, and that's important for a number of reasons. To track the data for psychometric analysis, which is a requirement to see which questions are good and which questions need improvement, but also to ensure that the work of developing the exams is reasonable and sustainable. The proctoring for each exam cycle has the same examination questions, the same requirements. Everything related to an individual's exam in a window is uniform. The exam is administered on a single day, with the multiple choice exam given in the morning and the performance exam given in the afternoon. The exam is available during 7-day examination windows that are determined by the commission. Exam applicants must register at least 21 days prior to the start of the examination window. And I'm going to show you the dates in a table in a couple of slides. So that's the brief overview. Let's talk about what these logistics are. Let's get into a little bit more details. The commission has recommended to MREC and to the board that the registered parliamentarian exam, the legacy RP exam be replaced with this new exam. Currently, the legacy exam is not being utilized, and a review is underway to update the exam to the 12th edition of Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, unless a new examination is introduced. And that's what we've done. And it's important to note that candidates are no longer able to enter the legacy RP exam, but there are still candidates completing that process. The work of that committee in the legacy exam still exists as people complete the last couple of parts that they have. The exam, as mentioned, will be administered during a one-day period and is composed of two sections. Section 1 will consist of 100 multiple choice questions derived from the Registered Parliamentarian performance expectations. Section 1 will be automatically scored by the examination platform. So all of the performance expectations that the commission has been working on for multiple years that are currently in the criteria, those will still be the basis of the exam. There's plenty of questions and content that the commission has worked on for a number of years that will continue to be the basis. These performance expectations and the questions derived from them are certainly one of them. Section 2 will be the performance exam. These are also derived from the Registered Parliamentarian performance expectations, with scenarios that each candidate must complete in writing. Section 2 will be scored by trained examiners. One of the things that the trained examiners will be grading off of will be detailed rubrics that are aligned with each question. So while it's graded by people and not by a system, there is a rubric to ensure objective grading here as well. For candidates to be successful, for somebody to get the RP exam credential, they must objectively demonstrate the core competencies needed to obtain the RP credential and must demonstrate the application of the core knowledge and basic business skills needed by every parliamentarian. Within 60 days of the close of each examination window, candidates will receive notification of their RP examination results and whether they have attained the RP credential. A sample of practice questions for both the multiple choice exam and the performance exams will be made available. However, the questions utilized for the actual examination will not be publicly available, nor will each subsequent exam be the same. So the exam offered in January will be different than the exam offered in April. The questions will not remain the same, will not be identical. The exam will be offered during an examination window at regular intervals. The examination window will occur quarterly. The regular interval system will allow for the exam materials to be regularly evaluated and improved for future usage, and allow the examiners notice of when their services will be needed and the associated deadlines. This continuous improvement approach, utilizing psychometric analysis of the examination data collected, will lead to improved examination instruments and examination experiences for the candidates. The commission will be administering and analyzing the examinations and recommending to the Membership Registration and Examiners Committee that the RP credential be awarded upon successful passage of the exam by the candidates. The exam will be proctored either in person or a virtual monitoring system that's approved by the commission on credentialing. And the decision has been made that it will be a virtual monitoring system that we'll talk about in just a few minutes. So let's look at the exam schedule. That's the description of the exam and all of the relevant policies for it right now. So let's look at the schedule. The January examination deadline, if you want to take the exam in January or February, it's January 10th, 2023. The exam will be available January 31 to February 6th. You could take the exam any day within that time period. The candidates, by the policy, must receive their results by April 7th, 2023. However, the commission, we intend to have those results to you much earlier. So our written public deadline for you is a week ahead of the examination window, of the candidate notification deadline. So we're committing to doing it at least a week ahead, if not sooner. And it's important to note that we want to do this as quickly and as expeditiously and as competently as possible. But we also realize there's some tight turnarounds for decision making. You'll notice these dates, and I'm not going to read the rest of the quarters and how that'll work, but you'll notice they're pretty close together. And because of the 60-day turnaround requirement and the 21-day examination window requirement, the deadline for the candidate notification for the first quarter is after the deadline to register for the exam for the second quarter. So that's part of the reason we're committing to doing these sooner than that, so that candidates may have time to take the exam in a subsequent quarter if they're not successful the first time. So let's talk about the testing platform. How are you going to take the test? How are candidates going to take the test? As the president mentioned, NAP has contracted with ExamSoft to manage and administer both the membership exam and the Registered Parliamentarian credentialing examination. The commission is currently working with ExamSoft to implement the new testing environment, getting the questions loaded, getting the exams built out for this January testing window. ExamSoft is a downloadable software. Candidates will download it to their computer. They can download the exams to their computer, and once they receive the right information of when they can take their exams, they'll be able to take it right there on their computer. The software locks down your system. Candidates won't be able to access the browser, access materials, access the internet, or anything like that on their computer while they're taking the exam. And this is for exam integrity. ExamSoft is a leading software company in the space of exam integrity, exam software, specifically for this type of testing. It's used by bar associations to administer bar exams. It's actually what I use to take my bar exam. And the software is intuitive and practical, and I think our members will appreciate using it as opposed to other options out there. We will be developing and releasing detailed tutorials and training on how to use ExamSoft. There will be a practice exam available so that candidates can take the practice exam to get comfortable with the software prior to taking their RPCE, the RP examination, so that they're as comfortable as possible with the software. This is a tool to allow us to administer the exam. It's not something that we want candidates to have anxiety over. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that that's limited as much as possible. So there's some other miscellaneous information that I'm sure you'll have questions about, including how much does it cost? What's the price of it? Well, that's coming soon. The commission is working on recommendations for the board of directors, which should be announced very soon so that prospective candidates can make informed decisions about the January exam period. The commission is still drafting rules and other requirements, and many issues that could arise will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. However, fairness and exam and credential integrity are of the utmost priority. It's fair to say that the first exam, this is new for all of us. Things could happen that we didn't anticipate. We might not have a rule or a policy on that yet. And I know for parliamentarians, we prefer to have the rule in advance, but sometimes that's not always the case. We're going to learn from these exams. We're going to be fair to the candidates taking them. And anything that comes up that needs to be dealt with will be dealt with candidates and credential integrity in mind. So while we're waiting on the cost to be determined, it's important to note where all of the exams have been. The legacy exam, there was kind of two charges for it. If you took it all at one time, it was $200. If you did it by part one was $25 and parts 2 through 5 were $50 each, which amounted to $225 if you took them individually or a couple of parts at a time. If you retook a part because you weren't successful the first time, you were charged that same price to retake it if you had to retake it multiple times. The Schoology program, all three steps with multiple parts was $200. And if you had to restart the program or retake the program for whatever reason, either because of deadlines or because a candidate wasn't successful on one of the quizzes or multiple of the quizzes, when they came back into the program, they had to pay the same $200 fee again to restart. So we don't know what the price is going to be yet. I think it's fair to say that we expect that the commission expects an increase of some sort for a couple of reasons. One, ExamSoft, it has some raw costs there that NAP has to calculate and factor in when determining the cost of these exams. But the prices of these original exams didn't include, were set several years ago, in some cases over a decade ago, have never been adjusted, have never factored in the additional cost it actually takes to administer these, not just a software cost, but a staffing and a labor cost for the organization. So when these new prices come out, it's the commission's intent to provide some additional clarification as to any sort of price changes. So let's compare all the exams. I've talked about the new exam, but let's compare the previous two RP exams in the new one. The legacy exam, you had a 1,200 question bank. They were available in advance. You had 5 parts. You had to get 80% on part 1 and 85% on parts 2 through 5. They could be taken over multiple dates. It was potentially a 9-month window from start to finish. And currently, there are no new applicants. As I mentioned, people are still completing the exam, parts of it, but no new people are coming in. The Schoology RP program was 3 steps. Step 1 had 8 parts. Each part had 3 possible quizzes. Part 8 had 3 possible quizzes, and each quiz had 3 individual segments. That's just part 1. It also had parts 2 and parts 3 that we just didn't have enough space on this slide to include. But the time frame was potentially upwards of 180 days in some instances. But it's also important to note that in 3 years, nobody completed the full program. No one got out of step 2 in the Schoology program. There are also no new applicants in the Schoology program. As mentioned, there are 49 candidates still in the program that are completing their work. They are going through and working on the step 1, parts 1 through 7 quizzes. They got to successfully complete those, and they have to attempt part 8 and step 1 to achieve the RP credential. Once those 49 are through the process, or March 1st, 2023, the Schoology program will go away also. The new RPCE is 2 sections. Section 1, 100 multiple choice questions. They're not available in advance. Section 2 has 5 written assignments, including one on professional responsibility, and it will be completed in 1 day, and you'll have your results back within 60 days. So I want to talk a little bit more about the differences between the new RP credentialing exam and the Schoology program. It boils down to a different approach to credentialing. The new RP CE takes a different approach to credentialing than previous versions of the exam. It's in fact a certification approach. The Schoology program, designed program, is a legitimate method to administer a credential. There's no question about that. But this is what outside organizations, credentialing entities, call an assessment-based certificate program. And I'm gonna walk through some of the differences between an assessment-based certificate program and a certification approach over the next couple of slides. And all of this material comes from a report called Defining Features of Quality Certification in Assessment-Based Certificate Programs. It was released in 2010 by the Institute for Credentialing Excellence. And I'm happy to provide this PDF with the recording material so we can put it in the town hall section in the NAP portal if you're interested in that. And you'll see that these are, for the most part, exact copy and paste from that publication. So the different philosophy and approach. An assessment-based certificate program, the primary focus of an assessment-based certificate program is on facilitating the accomplishment of intended learning outcomes. Although assessment is an integral part of the certificate program, the primary purpose of the program is to provide education and training which supports the accomplishment of the intended learning outcomes, as opposed to a certification, which the primary focus is a professional or personal certification program is on providing an independent assessment of the knowledge, skills, and/or competencies required for competent performance of an occupational or professional role or specific work-related task or responsibility. The purpose under an assessment-based certificate program, the purpose of formative assessment is to provide feedback to both participants and facilitators with the intent on enhancing the learning process. The purpose of the assessment for a certification, the assessment process is to evaluate mastery of the knowledge, skills, and competencies required for the certification. And then any generally accepted assessment method may be utilized for this purpose. This goes back to the difference between the Registered Parliamentarian Credentialing exam, the new exam that we're introducing, is a summative approach as opposed to a formative approach. That formative approach is where you're taking it over a longer period of time, trying to assess and instill that knowledge throughout a particular length of time. The assessment-based certificate program, that formative assessment may take place on one or more occasions throughout the learning process. So for the Schoology program, it occurred at every part, for example, in step one, at every part. So you had an assessment, maybe multiple assessments that you could take for each part of that assessment. Whereas a certification, the assessment takes place after the participant has had the opportunity to acquire the targeted knowledge, skills, or abilities. Successful completion of an assessment-based certificate program, successful completion of the summative assessment is sometimes required to receive the certificate, but a summative assessment was not required in the Schoology RP program. It was those individual units of knowledge through those quizzes and through those written assignments that participants had to complete. The certification, the assessment is conducted in a standardized manner in a secure, proctored environment. Successful completion of that assessment is required to receive the certification. And for me, this was the biggest difference between the two. The thing when I read this that it clicked for me as to why these programs are different and why I think this new approach is superior for NAP. Under an assessment-based certificate program, certificate holders have a certificate in whatever, in parliamentary procedure or whatever we might call it. Certificate holders are not awarded an acronym or letters for use after their name upon completion of the certificate program. That formative assessment model, most of the time under the Institute for Credentialing Excellence, would not generally grant them the ability to use letters after their name, which we, as NAP and as parliamentarians, do. Whereas the certification approach, certificates are certified in XYZ or certified XYZ professionals. And under this approach, certificates are awarded an acronym or letters for use after their names to signify that they have obtained and maintained the credential. So this was one of the biggest differences between these two different approaches. And it's not to say that the Schoology approach was insufficient or not legitimate. It's just a different approach to assessment. However, for the commission, for the current commissioners, the certification-based approach was more desirable because of the science and the data that has supported it through these independent publications. It's also important to note that the differences between evaluators and examiners. Evaluators, which were used under the Schoology program, the previous system relied heavily on repeated exams and evaluations. However, the evaluation process was inconsistently applied, and many candidates waited weeks, months, even years before receiving sufficient feedback to move on to their next assignment. This need for constant feedback of assignments and the ability to resubmit assignments is not indicative of a credentialing assessment, but a certificate program. For under the new approach, under an examiner approach, examinations will be scored within a reasonable time frame, and candidates will be informed of that results so that they know the outcome. So I've thrown a bunch of stuff at you. What's the main takeaway between the Schoology RP program and the new Registered Parliamentarian Credentialing Exam? The RPCE is a certification approach. This certification approach is both attainable for the member and sustainable for the organization. And it's for those reasons why the commission, working with MREC and the board, developed this new process. We think it's better for the member who's going through the process. We think it's better for the organization who's administering the process. With that, Madam President, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, CJ, thank you very much. And we will just start here, and I will answer the questions and let you answer them. Okay, the first question is, however, if Schoology is being replaced, if a member is in the PRP PQE process that also uses Schoology and does not succeed, what would be the process?
Thank you. That's a great question. So Schoology is going away in March. And for the PQE, the PRP process, and the PRC process, those courses in Schoology are actively being rebuilt in NAP University right now. So if you're an RP, you're working on your PRP, and it'll be after March 1st in which you take it, you will submit those assignments. You'll do all of that course, all of that examination work in NAP University. But it'll look and feel pretty much the same, although we're very hopeful it'll be a much better experience with the new platform.
Yes, that is what we're hoping for. Thank you so much for that. And the next question is, the recordings of the town hall, will they be made available also with the slides? And I think you've already answered that. Yes, the recording and the slides will be made available. Your next question, why can't there be a discount cost if necessary to retake the exam?
Well, that's a great question. Ultimately, and I don't normally punt on questions. Ultimately, this is up to the board to make the decisions related to pricing and retakes. But what I would say is that has not been our practice in the past. Our practice in the past has not been that if you retake it, you get a discount. And I would say from the process, the new exam, all of the same work and all of the same costs are still going in for each subsequent examination. For other professional credentialing systems, if you have to retake it, you have to pay the same amount. When I took the bar exam to become a lawyer, if I had not passed on that first try, when I retook it, I would have had to pay the same amount to do that. And I'm aware of some organizations, although I don't have them offhand, that actually charge more for retakes because they have to go through and maybe rebuild an examination, so you're getting different content.
Okay, thank you for that. And will the PRP exam use ExamSoft? Also, will there be a new exam?
So the PRP is structured differently. The current PRP process, whatever the new PRP process looks like, one hasn't been finalized and certainly hasn't been announced. If a monitored system is required, we will use ExamSoft because that's what we're using for everything else. At this point, I don't know that we would need to use ExamSoft for the PRP process, either for the PQE, the current process, or for the whatever may come, because those are generally in the nature of submitting things to your facilitators, and we probably wouldn't need as secure of an environment to do that.
Okay, all right. And that also answered the second question. It related to the PRP as well. Was the decision to make the grant, was the decision to grant the RP credential to those who completed step 1 of the Schoology program? If so, what if we did but haven't heard anything?
So the decision was not it wasn't to grant those who've completed step 1. What the decision was is to grant the credential to those who successfully completed
Mhm,
step 1, parts 1 through 7, and attempted part
mhm,
8. And for those that were currently in the system. So we've notified all of those people who met that criteria. We've done a painstaking audit
mhm,
of
mhm.
all the membership. Um, but if you believe that you completed step 1, you went on to step 2, that you were active in the program, and you should be awarded the credential, please email commission@nap2.org. We'll be happy to take a look to see what the issue is.
Thank you for that. And does NAP believe that a 12-year-old certification program is still appropriate and relevant if it has not been updated?
Um, I don't know. I assume what you're referencing is the report that I was referencing. That's not a certification program. That's explanations of different certification processes. It is the one of the fundamental documents that has been used. At least it's my understanding that's been used since the creation of the commission to do these evaluations. Now, if you're not talking about that and you're talking about the actual exam, um, I think it's fair to say NAP doesn't believe that a 12-year-old certification program is still appropriate because we just announced a change.
Mhm. And we've had a new version of R&R to come out within the 12 years. So we just got one a couple of years ago. Okay, what will be the recourse if scoring is not completed in the 60 days?
That's a great question. I honestly don't anticipate a time where it's not completed in the 60-day period, but that's a policy. And so my assumption would be is that if it's not completed in 60 days, then it would require some sort of board involvement, since the commission would be violating a board policy.
Okay, and then I'm going to answer this one. I'm going to read it out loud. It says, so does this mean that those of us who got our credentials in Schoology are not legitimate? Will we be looked down upon? And let me just pause and say now to all of the candidates that recently received their RP, you are full-fledged RP. Your credentials are no less than those that completed the 1,200 question legacy exam. And I would say that a lot of the work that you went through was more rigorous than what the legacy exam was. So by no means are your credentials less effective or illegitimate or anything like that. And you should not be looked down upon. As a matter of fact, I think you all did an outstanding job getting through that. And so be proud of what it is you have accomplished, because we're certainly proud of you. And your RP credential is just as legitimate as any other RP credential that we've awarded. The next question is that someone is interested in taking the next level, and they're interested in the program. So we're happy to hear that. So please make sure you study, and we look forward to you participating in that next level, getting your RP. And here's one: are people who completed the legacy or past program able to use the RP in their signature?
Um, well, before I answer this, I'd like to tack on to Madam President what you just said
Oh, sure.
about candidates, newly credentialed members who got their
Yes.
RP in the past month because of the Schoology program decision. I received my RP through the 1,200 question legacy exam. And I've spent it feels like an eternity, but the past 3 months thinking about the RP Schoology program every day. I'm in Schoology every day. I look at this stuff all the time. And I firmly believe to complete parts 1 through 7 and attempt part 8 is harder it's more rigorous. You
Mhm.
learned more than you did from the legacy exam. So I would challenge anybody that believes that uh, it's not as well regarded, it's not as good as the legacy exam. I'll enroll them in Schoology tomorrow to find out. So,
Mhm.
um, just that little aside. I apologize, Madam President. So,
No, thank you.
so to repeat the question that I'm supposed to answer is, can you use your RP in your signature if you completed the legacy or past program? The answer is yes, as long as you've kept up the requirements to maintain that credential. So if you received an RP 10 years ago but have let it lapse, you can't keep using it. So that's not a blanket yes, but if you've maintained it, you've paid your dues, you're an active member, you've not let it lapse, whether you received it under the legacy or the new program, or you receive it after the January testing window, you can use RP in your signature line.
Mhm. Thank you. Comment, other organizations are moving away from what it appears NAP is moving toward regarding the philosophy of certification. And I'm not sure exactly what they're getting at. Maybe you understand that better than I do.
So, thank you, Madam President. So the comment is essentially, I think, suggesting that what NAP is moving towards, other organizations are moving away
Away from.
from.
Mhm.
And what I would say is, the bar exam has remained the same. Most licensure exams have remained the same. Are there different approaches? Absolutely. But I think the important thing to keep in mind here is, while you may not agree or like the new testing format, you may have some problem with it. That's fine. The reality is the member can attain it. It's not going to take them 3 years enrolled in the exam to
Mhm.
complete. Um, and the organization can sustain it. It can accomplish it. It can do it. And if there's another program out there that is both attainable and sustainable, I'd be open to hearing about it. But what we need to be focused on is developing a credential that works for NAP, that works for members to attain, but that also, when someone goes out as an RP or as a PRP, whenever they're working with a group, they know those credentials matter.
Yes, great. Okay, here's one. Amazing work done by the commission. Is there a projected start date to begin the RPCE?
Well, the RPCE will open for registration as soon as the board approves the pricing. And again, that's not me calling out the board, I promise. The commission has been working on this as well. As soon as that pricing is released from the board, the registration portal will open through the NAP portal through the bookstore, and that first exam will occur in January.
Yes, and as you all will hear me say in my remarks at the end of this program, the NAP Board of Directors will have a special board meeting on Monday, December the 5th, to consider the recommendation on the fee structure for our credential program. Okay, the one-day testing requirement could be problematic for disabled certification seekers. Can you answer or address that?
Absolutely. If a candidate thinks that they need an accommodation, it's NAP's policy to provide reasonable accommodations to anybody that needs one. So if a candidate needs accommodation, the commission, MREC, and the board, and the staff will be more than willing and more than happy to
That's
work
right.
through those.
Yes, that's correct. Correct. CJ, can you put back up the slide that the examination dates? Okay, that's fine. And will there be study guides for the PRCE?
Well, this is a great question, and I promise I did not pay this person to ask this question because I'm so ready to answer it. There will not be a specific study guide for the specific questions. What is available is the performance expectations, which are on the NAP website and listed in the 2019 criteria for credentialing, and they'll be listed in an upcoming criteria for credentialing as well. Um, those are the specific chunks of knowledge that you will need to demonstrate to pass. That, coupled with the joint code of professional responsibility, which you'll also need to know to pass, those are going to be the suggested study guides. But here's the thing I'm most excited about. NAP is working on and has been working on for over 2 years now a series of webinars to help educate and demonstrate what these performance expectations are. So those webinars have been going on for several years, but here's the really exciting thing. We're taking all of that content, and I can see the president smiling, and I'm sure she's furious that I'm saying this. We're taking all of, but it was a question, so I had to. We're
Yes.
taking all of that content and we're converting that into a course that will be designed and mirrored and matched those performance expectations. That if you're a member or you're a non-member, you can acquire that course, you can purchase that material, you can do that study, and that'll prepare you for the RP exam.
Mhm. Yes, and I actually am excited about that, CJ. If a member is in the legacy process and does not complete or pass all the exams, what is the next step? What are the next steps?
Absolutely. So for those 49 people that are currently in the Schoology program, you have to pass one of the quizzes from parts 1 through 7. You have to attempt part 8. If you're unable to do that, either because of time limitations on your part, which you have until March 1st, 2023, to do that, regardless of what your original deadline was, you have until March 1st, 2023 to complete. But if you're unable to do it because of time, or you're unsuccessful at one of the quiz levels, your option will be, as soon as you're out of that program because the time, or because you've not completed one of the quizzes, you'll be able to take the RP certification examination. But the good thing is, and I heard the collective sigh for some of those that might be in there of, well, I did all this work, and now I have to take a different exam. It's the same materials covered. So all the material that you're preparing for and studying for in the Schoology program, those same performance expectations, the same style of questions will be used in the RPCE. So you will be well prepared to continue your studies to be successful on that exam.
Okay, CJ, the question talked about the legacy process, in which I'm hoping that
Right.
no, let me finish. I'm hoping that they really were talking about the process that is in play now, the RP process using Schoology. But and so you've answered that, but in the event the question really is about the legacy process, and if you don't complete it, I would hope that you would be successful, because that exam was retired almost a year ago. And so if you're not successful in passing all parts of the legacy, then your next option would be to go to the new RP, the RPCE. Okay. The next question is, how will the training materials change in the NAP bookstore if there is a want to take the exam in January?
Well, one thing I would say is we're updating those materials in the bookstore all the time. Your Educational Resources Committee is doing some phenomenal work on your behalf when it comes to developing educational content. But is there going to be a specific change related to the exam? I'm unaware of one. And the reason why is because the study guide that you need are those performance expectations. You can read through those and see, I need to be able to demonstrate how to do this. And here's the citation for Roberts that I need to go learn and understand. So that, coupled with those webinars in the new training course that's coming, that'll be rolling out in the near future, those are the things that'll be in the bookstore that'll help you to really prepare for that.
Okay, and how rigorous is part 2 of the RPCE? What type of questions will be asked? The first part of the 100 questions coming from the legacy perspective seem to be few questions.
Yeah, so there are fewer questions, fewer multiple choice questions, all in the new examination. But I think it's important to keep in mind, well, there's two things that are important to keep in mind. Is one, you don't have them in advance. The 1,200 questions, if you had them in advance, you could study just the questions and not the book. But under the new exam, you are really forced to study the book because you don't have the questions in advance. That's the first thing. The second thing, we will be releasing sample questions for both parts 1 and section 1 and section 2. If you're interested in what the multiple choice questions look like for section 1 right now, you can go to the NAP website and look under the RP resources, which we are in the process of updating that content, but so it still reflects the Schoology program. But those practice questions on that website are very similar to the questions that you could expect to see on the RP credentialing exam. And I'll just give you a hint. There's a big difference in how they're asking questions. The legacy exam, the 1,200 questions, largely focused on specific pieces of content or pieces of knowledge you needed to know. Is previous question debatable? Stuff, those types of questions. You go and look at those questions on the NAP website that are currently up as practice questions. You'll see there's a big difference. Not only do you have to understand what the motion is or what the piece of parliamentary procedure information is, you then have to know it, and then you have to apply it in a circumstance. So the questions are different. Now, you asked about the written assignments as well. They will be graded also using the performance expectations. So one of them might be you're asked to complete a client letter. You're given a scenario. You're asked to advise on some issue that an organization is having and provide competent advice in writing, something you would be expected to do regularly as a parliamentarian. Well, you'll be examined specifically on the procedural information you're providing. Is it competent, accurate, complete advice that would actually help that client? So those will be the differences in the two. And soon we'll have a complete list of sample questions for both section 1 and section 2.
Okay. And then maybe my screen jumped here. What is the training process members will go through in order to reach the exam RPCE stage?
I think I understand the question. I mean, what's if you're a member, how I'm going to answer that is what I'm hearing, or what are the steps to take the RPCE? If you're a member, you can sign up, and you don't have a credential already, you can sign up for the RP exam as soon as it's available. Hopefully in the coming weeks to take that in January. If you want to know what sort of training you need to do, what sort of knowledge you need to know, I'd encourage you to go look at the performance expectations on the NAP website for the RP examination.
Okay, thank you. And will practice exams be available? Are repeat attempts possible? Is there a limit to exam attempts?
So will practice exams be available? No. Sample questions will be available to give you an idea of what the questions in each section will look like. Let me see where are repeated attempts at exams possible? Yes, they are possible. The commission and MREC and the board haven't adopted procedures on that. So if you're unsuccessful in January, as of right now, you'll be able to take the next quarter exam if you would choose to. And is there a limit to exam attempts? Not at this time. There hasn't been a policy adopted for that.
Okay. And CJ, on the screen, we have the RPC schedule, and then under January 5th, 2023, that should be January 2024, correct? In December 2024.
Yes.
Thank okay. You. All right. Okay.
I'll update that.
And thank you to the members for pointing that out to us. Time is going by fast, but okay. What happens if you pass the 100 multiple choice questions and not the written part?
If you pass the 100 multiple choice and not the written part?
Yes. What happens?
You do not obtain their credential, and you'll be you'll need to retake the exam and pass both parts subsequently.
Okay, so you have to retake the whole exam, both parts.
Yes.
And when can you make application for the RP program?
As soon as we have a price from our amazing board of directors.
Okay. It says exam part 2. How will the assignments be scored? Will it be pass or fail? Will we have to get all 5 questions correct?
So they will be scored on a rubric. You'll be able to collect points for each question. So you may not get a perfect score, but if you don't get everything right, that doesn't mean you don't pass. Um, as of right now, you'll have to, I believe, achieve 80% on section 2 to pass. And if there's 5 questions, it'll each be approximately worth 20% of the exam. So you can work your way up to that 80%, or maybe it's 85%. I'd have to double check. But you don't have to be perfect, but they are scored on a rubric basis, and you'll be able to collect points for correct information.
Okay. Okay, here's some good information comments. This has been tremendously helpful and articulate presentation. Do you have any guidelines regarding study?
I've got lots of thoughts regarding study.
Study and study often.
Study often. Take advantage of those webinars. Take advantage of the free resources that NAP has provided to you so far. I would study with a group. If whether that's a unit or a group of people that you want to study together, and assess yourselves. Make sure you understand those specific chunks of knowledge listed in those performance expectations. Once you've mastered it, you can check it off and move on to the next one. I think the performance expectations are written and developed in a way, and I give tremendous credit to previous commissioners on the level of detail included in that document. If you can master those scenarios, you can pass the exam.
Yes, and I would definitely concur with that and thank the previous commissioners. They did an outstanding job in developing the criteria on credentialing. We're going to take a few more questions here. And before I ask you these questions here, CJ, just let me address. There are several questions where individuals are asking about studying for and training for the new RP and so forth. As I said in my opening remarks, and I'm so excited about this, NAP, the board of directors, we did approve in the 2023 budget, we set aside some $60,000 to develop training in NAP University. And we're going to be developing an RP training course so that individuals in our organization or outside for that matter, that want to go through this RP training course will have an opportunity to do that. At the end of the course, you won't have your credential. You'll still have to take the RPCE exam, but we are looking at providing training, a training course that you can go online and take through NAP University. We're not sure exactly when that course is going to be available, but we did put the monies aside so that we could begin developing that course as soon as we can. So members, just remember that. And until we do get that course developed, please go out to the website and look at all the materials we have out there. Studying that material is good, and studying RO&R, the 12th edition, is good. And so just make sure you're studying, and I really do encourage you to get, develop study groups, have a buddy or someone you can study with, or either get you a mentor, because we do have the mentoring program. And so there are lots of resources out there for you, but we are going to be developing an online class. That's one of the classes we'll be developing. Okay, CJ, on the day of the exam, does it matter the time that you start part 2 of the exam on that day, as long as you finish it in a 24-hour period?
That's a question the commission hasn't yet answered. We haven't yet determined the specific time parameters. But I don't think it will be any time within a 24-hour period. I think it'll be shorter than that. So you do it in one sitting within a reasonable amount of time in between each section.
Okay, and so back to the current credentialing program, it says here, so the 270-day deadline for part one doesn't matter. They still have until March 2023 to complete that. Is that correct?
That's correct. And a communication to those 49 people who are currently in that program is drafted and prepared to send out either or tonight or tomorrow, whenever I'm done fixing these slides, really, providing that information. So any active candidate in the process will get an email clarifying that their completion date is March 1st, 2023.
Okay, all right. And now, is the credentialing commission, are you all the ones that will evaluate and grade the exam? If not, who are the examiners? Also, is there still an option to take the exam with an independent proctor?
Thank you for those questions. The commission will be the examiners for the first exam. We've got an examiners committee that consists of non-commissioners. I do not expect after the first couple of exams that the commissioners themselves will be solely responsible for the grading. But at least for the first one and the first two, every commissioner will be intimately involved with that process as we're continuing to develop resources so that examiners can take over that role in the future.
Okay, thank you.
And then there was another question about an independent proctor.
Yes, the independent proctor.
As of right now, unless there's a reasonable accommodation granted, every candidate will take even if you have a reasonable accommodation, unless there's a reason you cannot use ExamSoft, a reasonable reason, a legitimate reason why you can't use ExamSoft, every candidate has to take it in that software. And the reason, one of the simple reasons is that's the consistent thing for the commission, the examiners, to turn around the grades timely. But more importantly, that's where the exam lives. All of the questions and all of the materials live in ExamSoft. We're developing the exam from materials we've added to ExamSoft. So to allow that to occur outside of ExamSoft, I can't imagine a scenario where that's likely to happen.
Okay, all right. And members, yes, you can still purchase the 1,200 question study guide. It is still in the bookstore, so you can still obtain that if you want. But now keep in mind, we are not using that legacy exam anymore, but that material is very good. And I would probably say to you members, if you wait just a little while, we are in the process of trying to get it upgraded, updated to the 12th edition. And so we will not be, I'm not sure whether or not we're going to do hard copies of that, but we may make it available for a download, is what we're thinking. But those are things we still have to work out. But that 1,200 questions, they are available in our bookstore today. And CJ, what percentage of the questions in section 1 of the new RP do they have to obtain to be successful in part 1?
I believe it's either 80 or 85%. I have to go back and verify that, but it's either 80 or 85%.
Okay. And will section 2 be testing such things as being able to do an agenda script and information that goes in the minutes and the treasurer's report, that type of stuff?
What will be tested in section 2 will be those performance expectations listed in the RP performance expectations. How you demonstrate those can change. It could be as a minute in the form of minutes or treasury reports or any other type of method that we can evaluate those, but it will be in a written assignment type style question.
Okay, all right. I think that is it. I think we've covered all the questions that we have. If we did not, again, members, please feel free to reach out to the commission, members of the board, or any of our committees that are working in this process to get your answers. So I just want to I have a few closing remarks. Let me first say, before I actually do my closing remarks, members, let me just share with you a few announcements that I have. The NAP, the training conference, the 2022 training conference recordings are available through December 31st of this year. So if you have not had an opportunity to go out there and look at them, please do so. Also, the NAP Board of Directors will hold a special meeting on Monday, December the 5th, to consider a recommendation from the Commission on Credentialing regarding the new fee structure for the RP and PRP exams. The next regular meeting of the NAP Board of Directors will be Tuesday, January the 10th at 7 p.m. Central Time. And I invite all of you all to come out and to attend any of the board meetings so you can see your board at work. And then when you renew your dues, please remember your membership to update your membership information in the NAP portal and notify headquarters of any changes soon as possible. This is especially important if you are changing your units or your association or anything like that. We want to make sure that we have your correct information, and you can email your changes to hq@nap2.org. And then to the Commission on Credentialing, on behalf of the NAP Board of Directors, thank you so very much, Commissioners. You all have done an outstanding job. It seems like 30 days ago we were here talking, and now here we are, and we're on the verge of having our new exam ready. You all have done a tremendous job, and we thank you for that. And then also to our members, thank you so much for your patience as we continue to strengthen our credentialing program. And thank you for your attendance this evening. And again, if you have questions, please reach out to us and let us know what your questions are. Don't hesitate. We're here to actually answer any questions that you might have. And in closing, to our webinar meeting and support team, thank you so very much for your continued support in helping us to manage the town hall tonight. So everyone, I bid you good night, and please feel free to, again, dial in and take a look at the board meeting, the special meetings and our regular meetings that we're going to have. Thank you and good night.